Welcome back to Tokyo on Fire. The Finance Ministry and the Bank of Japan have been in negotiations to try and come up with ideas how they're going to resolve this 28 trillion yen stimulus package that the Prime Minister has suggested is coming down the path. Michael, these two are not quite butting heads, but they're trying to figure out how we can accommodate each other and still keep our part of the pie.
Oh, they're not. They are butting heads. Let's not beat around the bush. The Bank of Japan is being browbeaten by the Abe administration into trying to do things that no central bank should be doing, or at least no central bank has been trying to do since the 1930s. Mm-hmm. This is really a situation where Governor Kuroda has to somehow either finesse some kind of solution or surrender, because the Abe administration has responded to his previous signals, and let's face it, he has trouble signaling, or if you ask anybody in the markets, they just simply don't know whatever he says something, whether it really means something or not. But he has been signaling, it's your turn, government of Japan. Let's see you do some things. It's not just the Bank of Japan that's going to be working on stimulus. We need a fiscal side. We need a reform side. We need your efforts. Well, the Abe administration has proposed this fiscal stimulus package and says, haha, here we are, even though it's basically a lot of smoke and mirrors. And they have really leaned hard on Kuroda. They had a meeting the other day that was just amazing.
They had to do it in between where the ministry is located and where the Bank of Japan. They picked some hotel that was kind of halfway in between, so it's kind of neutral territory. Neither one wanted to give in and say, I'm not going to relinquish, the power and the control of the dialogue to you. Let's meet over in my place.
That's a really strange thing when you think about it internationally. I suppose if you think about it in terms of Japanese ryote politics and the politics in the background done in expensive restaurants, that they're used to this. But seen from the outside, that the Bank of Japan and the finance ministry cannot even meet on government property is really bizarre. But they had this meeting at the Imperial Hotel, and the finance ministry folks started out saying, the agreement that we had in 2013 with Governor Shirakawa, we want to renegotiate it. Wow, that's not the way to start out. You start out with a little bit more nemoashi, a little bit more, let's find a place where we can be comfortable. No, this relationship isn't working. You've got to change. Boy, not the way to start.
Well, the governor of the Bank of Japan is really striving to maintain his independence, but he was in fact appointed by the Prime Minister.
That's right, but he has been pressed this year with what's called helicopter money, which is, in Japanese has been contracted to heady money. And that means basically new bonds that are put out by the government are immediately bought by the Bank of Japan.
So they monetize the debt.
They monetize the debt immediately.
Good idea.
And certainly Korekiya Takahashi, the finance minister of the 1930s, who forced Japan to do this, and as a consequence, Japan was the first country in the world to exit from the Great Depression. It's a great model. It's wonderful, but it's not going to work in the absolutely multiplied world of international finance as we know today. And Kuroda says we can't. And anyway, even if I did do it, it's not significantly different from what I've already been doing. And that's the argument that's coming out of the BOJ. The government of Japan has a completely different view.
I wonder if the Prime Minister really let Kuroda, the governor of the Bank of Japan, in on his stimulus package. I've got to imagine that he did, but it sure doesn't sound like it.
Well, it certainly sounds like he got the news the same way everybody else did, via the bizarre Fukuoka meeting and the end of the speech there, when suddenly the number 28 trillion came out. And it was just a few days before the Bank of Japan was meeting, and then before this meeting of minds between the finance ministry and the Bank of Japan. Now, again, all of this is being subsumed beneath all kinds of other political events that are going on, the Tokyo governor's race.
It is an incredibly politically active time.
And underneath it all, completely buried, was the IMF's report on what Japan should be doing. That report should be at the top of the headlines because it should be something that everybody should be reading and saying, okay, here's what orthodox economics thinks.
Right.
And we can do unorthodox things, but we at least have to be able to bounce things off that wall. Nobody's paying attention to it at all.
Negative interest rates. That was announced just less than a month ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the thing is, with the 28 trillion yen package, the markets reacted extraordinarily by suddenly sending the prices of Japanese bonds plummeting and the interest rates going up.
Well, anticipation of the Bank of Japan moving on it.
Well, the thing is you cannot even, there's no real relationship anymore. The breakdown has happened between prices and information. That when you learn something, you should you should know that it's more valuable or less valuable, but it's now just herd behavior. Either way, wherever the thing is moving, that's where I'm going to go.
Well, right. Well, this die was cast 2 weeks ago, and so we knew that the Minister of Finance, Mr. Aso, would probably stay in place. He wouldn't be changed.
It seemed there was talk during the House of Councilors election that his time was up, and then suddenly we had this, no, we're going to consolidate, and we're going to have a whole new economics team, but it's going to be centered around Mr. Aso. And everybody said, oh, okay, but he does say crazy things every once in a while, and the finance ministry has not had any pull whatsoever in terms of things such as the tax increases on the consumption tax. That has been delayed again. The finance ministry's adamant position that it must be put in on schedule was completely ignored.
Right.
The finance ministry needs a better advocate. Nope. We like having Mr. Aso there. He understands he's part of the team, and we like having him close.
Yep. I think there's some logic to that.
There's some logic to that, but nevertheless, you really do need somebody to provide pushback. And as I said, the IMF, which should be providing a wall of reason on which to bounce ideas, is also being ignored. There's just simply nobody there. And then we're going to have, with the cabinet reshuffle, a whole new set of economics ministers, and we'll get a chance to talk about that because the cabinet reshuffle is going to be crucial in this. The economics folks that they put in will control the conversation. And the Bank of Japan, this whole meeting of minds and everything, the Bank of Japan is under siege.
Right. How different is this than just turning on the lights in the printing press and having that sucker go all night?
Well, the thing is, one of the things I've never understood about the entire project is, okay, we can lower interest rates, real interest rates, by having inflation. And if you read Krugman and Stiglitz and all these people, they all argued about these processes. Of course, they were really thinking about it would be great if they could be applied in Europe and America.
Right.
But they signed off on Abenomics and saying, yeah, this is a great idea, basically because it provides a template for other countries in the rest of the world. Whether it actually works in Japan or not, it's not our problem.
Right.
And it still is not their problem. So, okay, I got the purpose and the point of getting on this program. However, let's face it, interest rates are only a very small part of anyone's decision about whether to start a business, whether to expand production,
whether to increase wages.
All these things, the hiring and firing of people plays a much bigger role in terms of establishment of business or expansion of business. There are many other aspects of business which have much more important inputs into business decisions than interest rates.
Right.
And yet, everything is focused on interest rates, and the Abe administration wants to push the Bank of Japan even farther on this.
Well, I mean, probably the Prime Minister is going to get his way anyway.
Unfortunately, I guess you're right.
You're right? So what is left for people who are, trying to make ends meet and, support their parents who are retired and living maybe in the mountains, not in Tokyo Central, supporting children, trying to have, a family? Where is this going?
I don't know, and I certainly would not be very confident going forward.
There you have it, folks. Please stay tuned. We're not quite sure how this is going to shake out, but guaranteed it will provide some fireworks between the Ministry of Finance and the Bank of Japan. Stay tuned.